We are very honored and appreciative that we have with us today an exceptional leader on U.S. security and terrorism, Deputy Director John Mulligan of the National Counterterrorism Center. I thank him. He's been a visitor many times at many of our events, and I truly appreciate him taking his time from his busy schedule. Mr. Mulligan was responsible for NSA's overall counterterrorism program from August 2011 through February of 2015. His role included integrating NSA's capabilities with other U.S. government agencies to detect and disrupt terrorist threats around the world. Mr. Mulligan has been awarded both the Meritorious Civilian Service Award and the Exceptional Civilian Service Award from the U.S. Central Command for his work in Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. Mr. Mulligan has spoken at previous ALPA security conferences, so it's a great pleasure to have him here with us today. Deputy Director, the podium is yours, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Captain DePete. I really appreciate that kind introduction. Friends, it's really great to be back here talking to you. I realize that I am not the person perhaps who should be talking during lunch because I'm the one who makes everyone a little bit uneasy and queasy. So forgive me and try as best you can to enjoy your lunch while I'm speaking. As you know, within the National Counterterrorism Center, aviation security remains a continuing focus of our mission. We work in close partnership with all other elements within the national security community and law enforcement community against this threat environment. In my remarks today, I want to focus on three key points. One, I want to talk to you a little bit about how the current aviation threat appears to us within the intelligence community. I want to talk about the recent measures that have been taken by the Department of Homeland Security. And then I want to close by just talking about what the future looks like and ways we can perhaps address that. Make no mistake about it. Aviation remains a preferred target for terrorist organizations. It's not something that just pops up. It might pop up occasionally in the news, but from an intelligence perspective, we are looking at it as a constant. The potential for spectacular mass casualty attacks that cause economic damage and that attract international media attention makes it a tantalizing objective for terrorist organizations. We continue to see repeated calls for attacks against the aviation sector in extremist propaganda. Over the last year, we saw the downing of the Russian Metrojet airliner in Egypt in 2015. That was an ISIS attack. And the bombing last year of Adalo Airlines aircraft flight in Somalia, that was undertaken by Al-Shabaab, which is an Al-Qaeda affiliate. It underscores the enduring focus on aviation targets by these organizations. Both ISIS and Al-Qaeda have conducted or have plotted aviation attacks, and we assess that these are the two organizations that probably have the greatest capability to carry out attacks against U.S. or Western airlines. Improvised explosive devices, IEDs, remain a preferred tactic for aviation attacks. Terrorists will continue to explore innovative methods by which they can get IEDs on board aircraft. And, again, the internet, a great purveyor of positive and quality knowledge across the globe, is also a means by which these organizations share the tradecraft involved in how they can possibly undertake these attacks. We are concerned that the proliferation of bomb-making guidance to extremist online participants continues to expand the potential pool of extremists who might be tempted to act in this way. Since 2009, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which we have regarded for some period of time as being one of the more innovative affiliates, they have attempted 3 times to attack U.S. aviation using IEDs. We had the failed attack in December 2009. That was the one that occurred on Christmas Day, a Northwest Airlines flight. We had one against U.S.-bound cargo planes in October 2010 using bombs hidden inside cargo. And then we had another plot that was disrupted in May 2012. Fortunately, that one did not. That was disrupted far earlier in the process. We've seen similar attempts by other terrorist groups. a Syria-based group of al-Qaeda affiliates attempting. They were doing all sorts of plotting. They had some folks, quite frankly, who were seriously scholarly in their approach to studying ways in which they could undertake IED, if you will, introductions into aircraft. Fortunately, some of those plotters were removed from the battlefield in 2015. Despite the fact that some of these thought leaders are no longer with us, we believe that the intent remains with that group, and we've been alarmed over time by the degree to which, as I said, these different elements share information and knowledge with each other. So in other words, we treat it, again, as a continuing lethal capability. One of the points that I think is often overlooked is the fact that a lot of these terrorist organizations spend a lot of time studying the internet, looking for opportunities in which they could uncover indications of U.S. tradecraft, information on U.S. equipment capabilities. In other words, they're looking at our layered defenses and they're trying to learn. So we need to be particularly mindful about the proprietary information that appears online, because it could have potential value to these folks. We also remain concerned, and remain particularly vigilant to the potential ability of these organizations to infiltrate the industry or exploit aviation employees. Access to secured areas, knowledge of security frameworks, and the potential ability to move explosives or weapons through security checkpoints are all areas of study by terrorist organizations. The 2015 bombing of the Metrojet flight in Sinai, the one I referenced by ISIS, was possibly facilitated by an insider who smuggled the device onto the plane. Separately, that al-Shabaab attack that I referenced that occurred in February of 2016, that was actually facilitated by a security official at Mogadishu airport who passed, again, the package through a security checkpoint into a cleared area. Insiders are something we need to be very, very mindful about. The threat to aviation is not limited to aircraft. And if I could just say that over the past year, if there is one trend I want to particularly highlight to you, it is the fact that there is an increasing tendency to target what we would describe as the soft targets of people who are simply gathering in airports pre-flight. Last month, we saw a suspected extremist in Paris who was killed by a security guard at Orly Airport after he attempted to seize a rifle from the soldier as he was patrolling the airport. We also saw last year, we had those two attacks at Brussels and Istanbul. In March of 2016, the Brussels attack, those individuals detonated. They had vests, suicide vests, and they detonated immediately before the X-ray screening point. At Istanbul, the attack occurred in the general area where passengers congregate prior to departure. This is an area in which, as you know, we need to be very mindful of the security measures that are in place at every portion of the air travel process. We can expect, and I know, I'll go a little bit off on that, one of the things we're also seeing, and many of you are aware of, is the fact that they're increasingly using vehicles to attack groups of pedestrians. The bottom line is, particularly for ISIS, trying to keep it as varied and at times as simple as possible increases the probability of success as they see it, which is a mass attack that generates casualties, that attracts international media attention. We can anticipate that this will continue for an indeterminate point of time into the future. Anti-aircraft weapons, people get very uncomfortable when I raise this issue, but it remains another longstanding concern. As you know, there are certain parts of the globe in which we have had large amounts of weapons that literally became unaccounted for. Certain Certain countries remain the focus of the United States and our international partners from an intelligence perspective. We had that incident, it wasn't a terrorist incident, but the incident against the it was the Malaysian Airlines aircraft flying from Amsterdam to, I believe it was Kuala Lumpur. It was attacked as it was flying over Ukraine. You may remember that incident, but it illustrated the devastating impact that those weapons could have. The bottom line is that we are facing an extremely broad range of threats and that we need to remain particularly vigilant to the fact that there is a high degree of unpredictability. What we frequently see in the intelligence sphere is a number of different threads that we attempt to connect, sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. I mean, in other words, as you can probably imagine, the intelligence gathering against these threats is incremental and imperfect. That is why we need to be working very aggressively, not just within the interagency of the United States, but with our international partners in aviation security so that we can share information and share knowledge as robustly as possible so that we can make recommendations to our leaders to develop the measures to make these threats, again, to try and minimize them or mitigate them. The recent security enhancements, I know that some of our speakers probably addressed this before. They've been put in place, again, at those 10 specific airports which serve as last points of departure for the United States. Since these changes were announced, some of the most frequent questions I have been asked are, why now? Is there a specific threat? Well, first, as I said at the outset, the intelligence and national security community continuously assesses and evaluates the threat environment. We make these decisions collectively. I mean, you really need to know that part. Sometimes people think that one aspect of government is making a unilateral decision. I can assure you there is a very high degree of consultation. As you have discerned from what I have just mentioned, there is concern that these terrorist elements are trying to develop a number of different types of mechanisms to defeat our security processes. So we make recommendations that are often very specifically tailored to certain environments and situations. We also know that they're pursuing innovative methods to undertake these attacks. These include smuggling the devices in various consumer items. Implementing additional security measures in this way against a number of consumer items will enhance our ability to ensure the safety of our passengers and our crew. Looking to the future, what concerns us most in the aviation threat going forward? Probably the fact that, as I said, there is a large amount of knowledge available about the types of layered defense that we conduct in the security of our aviation. A lot of that information that is available is being exploited by a lot of these terrorist organizations. They have a lot of innovative, creative, talented personnel, many of whom have advanced degrees, many of whom are extremely conversant in many of the technical measures that we would employ to protect our folks, our airlines, our aircraft, and our airports. And we need to be working very, very aggressively to share information as efficiently as possible. And we need to be open to the fact that we are in a continuous learning environment. The intelligence that we gather is always going to be imperfect. The way that we have to be able to offset some of the technological challenges or technological capabilities that terrorists are developing is we need to improve a lot of our organizational structures. We have historically enjoyed great technical advantage, great technological insights into how we can develop these security measures. There's been a lot of leveling of that because of the general access of commercial technology. We need to continue to capitalize on the organizational strengths that we have within the United States and that we have within our, again, broader community of international partners. So let me pause for a moment, and I welcome any questions that you might have about what we're seeing. One point that I didn't make, and I just want to make sure that I address, is the fact that I know that you've had a panel talking about UAS Rest assured, these guys are developing UAS capabilities. They are doing all sorts of innovative and experimental things. We've seen them using them in surveillance. We've seen them using them in weapons delivery. We can rest assured they will continue to fine-tune their capabilities in this regard. Once again, I just want to tell you, I greatly appreciate it. I really appreciate the great work that you're doing. And again, I look forward to seeing you again in some of our other engagements. And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much.